The pounding on my front door shattered the pre-dawn silence like a hammer through glass. I jolted awake in my bedroom, heart racing, disoriented in the darkness. The digital clock on my nightstand glowed 5:03 a.m. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. Who would be at my door at this hour? Then the pounding came again, more insistent this time, accompanied by a voice I recognized immediately. "Open this door right now. This is my house. You have no right to be here." Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, screaming outside my home in the wealthy suburb of Coral Gables, Florida, her voice shrill with rage that I'd never heard from her before. My hands trembled as I grabbed my robe and made my way through the house I'd lived in for 32 years, the house my late husband David and I had bought when our son Marcus was just a baby. Through the peephole, I could see Vanessa on my front porch, her usually perfect blonde hair disheveled, still wearing what looked like pajama pants and an expensive silk top. Her face was flushed with anger, and she was holding her phone, probably having just tried to call me. My phone was still in my bedroom, on silent as it always was at night. I opened the door, and before I could speak, Vanessa pushed past me into my foyer. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she demanded, her voice echoing off the tile floors. "This is my house now. You need to leave immediately." I stood there in my bathrobe, exhausted and confused, trying to process what was happening. "Vanessa, what are you talking about? This is my house. I've lived here for over 30 years. "Not anymore," she said, pulling up something on her phone and shoving it in my face. "Marcus signed the deed over to me yesterday. This house legally belongs to me now, so you're trespassing, and if you don't leave, I'll call the police." The words didn't make sense. Marcus wouldn't sign over my house to anyone. This was my home, my security, the only thing I had left after David died. But as I looked at Vanessa's phone screen, I saw what appeared to be legal documents, official-looking papers with signatures and notary stamps. "There must be some mistake," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Marcus wouldn't do that without talking to me first. There's no mistake. He signed it over yesterday afternoon. He told me he'd discussed it with you, that you agreed to move into a retirement community. But clearly, you lied about that, didn't you? You're still here, in my house, uninvited." My mind raced backward to yesterday, to the conversation I'd had with Marcus that now took on a sinister new meaning. He'd stopped by in the afternoon, which was unusual since he and Vanessa lived 40 minutes away in Miami and rarely visited during the work week. He'd seemed nervous, had asked me to sign some papers he said were updates to David's estate, routine paperwork that needed my signature. "Mom, it's just formalities," he'd said when I'd hesitated, papers spread across my dining room table. "Dad's been gone 3 years now, and there are some loose ends with the trusts that need to be tied up. Nothing changes for you, I promise. You'll still have everything you need." I'd trusted him. I'd signed without reading carefully, without questioning why my son was suddenly so interested in estate paperwork when he'd shown no interest in it for the past 3 years. I'd signed because he was my son, because I never thought he would betray me. I didn't agree to anything, I told Vanessa now, my shock giving way to the first stirrings of panic. I didn't know Marcus was signing over my house. I thought I was signing estate documents. Vanessa's smile was cold and triumphant. "That's not my problem. You signed the papers. The house is legally mine now, so I'm giving you 24 hours to pack your things and get out." 24 hours? "Vanessa, I have nowhere to go. I can't just—" "You should have thought of that before you made my life miserable for the past 5 years. Her voice dropped to something almost conversational, which made it more frightening. "Did you really think I was going to let you keep living in a $1 million house in Coral Gables while Marcus and I struggle to pay our mortgage? Did you think I'd just accept your constant interference in our marriage, your judgment of everything I do, your precious family traditions that always made me feel like an outsider?" I stared at this woman my son had married, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. This wasn't spontaneous anger. This was calculated, planned revenge. And yesterday, I'd signed away my only security without even realizing it. "Where's Marcus?" I asked. "Does he know you're here? Does he know what you're doing?" "Marcus is at home, probably still sleeping. This is between you and me, Patricia. Woman to woman. You've made it clear since the day we met that you don't think I'm good enough for your son. Well, now I have what you value most, your precious house, and there's nothing you can do about it." And she turned and walked toward my front door, pausing in the doorway. 24 hours. If you're not out by tomorrow morning, I'll have the police remove you for trespassing. And Patricia, don't bother calling Marcus. He's done choosing between us. He chose me." The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like the end of everything I'd built over 3 decades. I stood in my foyer, the same foyer where Marcus had taken prom photos, where David and I had welcomed friends for countless dinner parties, where we'd celebrated Christmases and birthdays and ordinary Tuesday evenings. And now, according to my daughter-in-law, it belonged to her. I called Marcus immediately, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. He answered on the 5th ring, his voice groggy. "Mom? It's 5 in the morning. What's wrong?" "What's wrong? Vanessa just showed up at my door claiming you signed my house over to her yesterday. What's wrong is that apparently I'm being evicted from my own home. Marcus, tell me this is a misunderstanding." Silence. In that pause, I knew Vanessa had been telling the truth. "Mom, I was going to call you this morning to explain. I'm sorry Vanessa went over there like that. We were supposed to talk to you together." "Talk to me about what? About stealing my house?" "It's not stealing." His voice took on a defensive edge I recognized from his childhood, the tone he'd use when he knew he'd done something wrong but didn't want to admit it. "Mom, you don't need a house this big. You've been rattling around in there alone since Dad died, spending a fortune on maintenance and property taxes. Vanessa and I found you a nice retirement community in Kendall. You'll have people your age around, activities, no maintenance to worry about. You found me a retirement community? Without asking me? Marcus, I'm 63 years old, not 90. I don't need to be put in a home like some invalid." "That's not what I'm saying. But Mom, be realistic. You're alone in a 4-bedroom house. You're not getting any younger. What happens when you can't handle the stairs anymore? What happens if you fall and there's no one there to help you? So, your solution is to steal my house and give me 24 hours to pack my entire life? The 24 hours thing is Vanessa being dramatic. Mom, we'll help you move. We'll get you set up in the new place. You'll see, it's actually really nice. Some of your friends from church are already living there. The fact that they'd already chosen a place for me, that they'd apparently researched which of my friends lived there, made it clear this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This had been planned, probably for months. "Did you trick me into signing those papers yesterday?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Did you deliberately lie to me so I'd sign away my home?" Another pause. I didn't lie. Those papers were exactly what I said. Estate documents, technically. "Marcus, how could you do this to me? How could you betray me like this?" "I didn't betray you, Mom. I'm trying to help you. You're just too stubborn to see it. Look, I have to go. I have an early meeting. Vanessa and I will come by this evening, and we'll talk about the logistics of your move. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." He hung up before I could respond, leaving me standing in my kitchen, with the cabinets David had refinished by hand, the tile backsplash I'd chosen, the window over the sink where I'd watched Marcus play in the backyard for years, holding a phone and wondering how my life had just been stolen from me by my own son. I didn't wait for the evening confrontation Marcus had promised. Within an hour of Vanessa's early morning ambush, I'd called my friend Eleanor, who'd been a real estate attorney before retiring. She arrived at my house by 8 o'clock, her expression grim as I explained what had happened. "Show me the documents you signed," Eleanor said, settling at my dining room table with her reading glasses and a legal pad. I found the papers Marcus had left with me. He'd given me copies, saying I should keep them for my records. Eleanor read through them slowly, her frown deepening with each page. "Patricia, I'm so sorry, but this is legal. You signed a quitclaim deed transferring the house to Vanessa. It's been notarized and filed with the county. As of yesterday afternoon, this house legally belongs to her." The confirmation felt like a physical blow, but I didn't know what I was signing. Marcus told me it was estate paperwork. That's fraud, potentially, but proving it would be extremely difficult and expensive. You'd need to show that Marcus deliberately misrepresented what you were signing, and even then, undoing a properly executed deed. She shook her head. "It could take years and cost tens of thousands in legal fees." "I don't have tens of thousands," I said quietly. "David's life insurance ran out last year, paying for his medical bills. I have my teacher's pension and Social Security and some savings, but not enough for a protracted legal battle." Eleanor reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Let me make some calls. There might be options. Legal aid, maybe a pro bono attorney who handles elder fraud cases. This is financial abuse, Patricia. Your son used his relationship with you to steal $1 million asset." After Eleanor left, promising to reach out to her contacts, I did what I'd been avoiding. I went through my house room by room, looking at everything with new eyes. This wasn't just a house, it was my life. The nursery, that became Marcus's childhood room, still painted the blue we'd chosen together. The master bedroom, where David had died, where I'd held his hand through his final breaths. The kitchen, where I'd baked birthday cakes and holiday dinners. The backyard where Marcus had learned to ride a bike. In Marcus's old room, I opened his closet and found boxes of his childhood things I'd been saving. His baseball trophies, his high school yearbooks, drawings from elementary school. I'd kept them thinking that someday he'd want them, that maybe his children would enjoy seeing what their father had been like as a boy. Now, looking at these artifacts of his childhood, I wondered what had happened to that sweet kid who'd written me Mother's Day cards saying I was the best mom in the world. My phone rang. Marcus calling back. I almost didn't answer, but Eleanor had told me to document everything, to get him to admit what he'd done if possible. Mom, I talked to Vanessa. She shouldn't have confronted you like that this morning. She was out of line. Was she? Or was she just executing the plan you two made together? There's no plan. Mom, you're being paranoid. We genuinely think this is what's best for you. Best for me or best for you? How much is this house worth, Marcus? $1 million? More? And how convenient that you're struggling with your mortgage while I'm sitting on all this equity. This isn't about the money. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. I know about your business debt, Marcus. I know the consulting firm you started is struggling. I know you borrowed money from Vanessa's parents to keep it afloat. Did they suggest this? Did they see my house as an easy solution to your financial problems? The silence confirmed my suspicions. I'd pieced it together from comments Marcus had made over the past year, from tension I'd noticed between him and Vanessa, from the expensive lifestyle they maintained that seemed increasingly at odds with Marcus's occasional requests to borrow money from me. My business will turn around, Marcus said finally. But yes, things have been tight. And yes, Vanessa's parents have been helping us. But Mom, that doesn't change the fact that you don't need a house this size. We can sell it, use the money to pay off some debts, and set up a trust for you. A trust you'd control? Someone has to manage these things. You don't understand finance, Mom. You never have. The condescension in his voice was new, or maybe I'd just never heard it so clearly before. I understood it well enough to keep a roof over your head after your father died. I understood it well enough to put you through college on a teacher's salary. But now I'm too incompetent to manage my own affairs? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying, Marcus? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my son conspired with his wife to defraud me out of my home so they could pay off their debts. You're making this sound so ugly. We're trying to help you. Help me. You gave me 24 hours to pack up my entire life. You tricked me into signing away my home. How is any of that helping me? We argued for another 10 minutes, the conversation going in circles until Marcus finally said he had to go, that we'd talk more when he came by that evening. After hanging up, I sat in David's old armchair, the one I'd refused to get rid of even though it was worn and didn't match my other furniture, and let myself cry for the first time since Vanessa's early morning invasion. I'd lost David 3 years ago to cancer. Now, I was losing Marcus to something worse, greed, or maybe to Vanessa's influence, or perhaps to a selfishness that had always been there, but I'd refused to see. My phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. Found an attorney who might take your case. Are you free this afternoon? I looked around my living room, at the life I'd built, the home I was about to lose. Yes, I typed back. I'll fight this. The law office of Rodriguez and Associates was in downtown Miami, a sleek, modern building that intimidated me before I even walked through the door. Eleanor met me in the lobby, introducing me to Carmen Rodriguez, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who specialized in elder financial abuse. Mrs. Patterson, tell me everything, Carmen said once we were settled in her office. I walked her through yesterday's events, Marcus arriving unexpectedly, the papers he'd asked me to sign, his explanation that they were routine estate documents, then Vanessa's 5 a.m. confrontation, the deed transfer, Marcus's defensive phone call. Carmen listened without interrupting, taking notes on her legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. This is definitely fraud. Your son deliberately misrepresented the nature of the documents to obtain your signature. The challenge is proving it. He admitted it on the phone, I said. He said the papers were technically estate documents. I can show you my call log. That helps, but it's not enough. We'd need more evidence. Text messages, emails, maybe testimony from witnesses about the family dynamics that led to this. Tell me about your relationship with your daughter-in-law. I hesitated, knowing how my answer would sound. Vanessa and I have never been close. She's very different from our family, more focused on money and status. She's made it clear she thinks I'm too involved in Marcus's life. Has she ever made threats? Suggested she wanted you out of the house? I thought back over 5 years of tense interactions, passive-aggressive comments, family dinners where Vanessa had made little jabs about my outdated furniture or inefficient use of space. But actual threats? Nothing explicit. But last year, at Thanksgiving, she mentioned how much the house would be worth if I sold it. She said I was sitting on a gold mine that I wasn't using efficiently. Carmen made a note. What about your son's financial situation? You mentioned business debt? I told her what I knew, that Marcus had left his stable corporate job 2 years ago to start his own consulting firm, that the business was struggling, that Vanessa's parents had loaned them money. Marcus has asked me for money a few times in the past year. Small amounts, a few thousand here and there. I gave it to him because he's my son. Did he pay you back? No. Did you expect him to? I thought about that. I wanted to help him. He said the business just needed time to get established. Carmen set down her pen. Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to be honest with you. This case is going to be difficult. Yes, your son committed fraud, but you're his mother, and you have a pattern of giving him money without expecting repayment. A judge might see this as a family transaction gone wrong rather than criminal fraud. So I just lose my house? After 32 years, I just walk away? I didn't say that. I said it's difficult, not impossible. Here's what I recommend. First, we file for an emergency restraining order preventing the sale of the property until the fraud claim is investigated. That buys us time. Second, we gather every piece of evidence we can. Your son's text messages, financial records showing his debt, anything that establishes a pattern of financial manipulation. Third, we try to negotiate. Negotiate? With the people who stole from me? Sometimes negotiation is more effective than litigation. If Marcus and Vanessa know we have evidence of fraud, they might be willing to undo the deed transfer rather than face criminal charges. The consultation lasted 2 hours. By the end, I'd agreed to hire Carmen on a payment plan I could barely afford, had signed documents authorizing her to file emergency motions, and had been given homework: collect every email, text, and document related to Marcus's financial situation and our relationship. Eleanor drove me home, neither of us speaking much. When we pulled up to my house, I saw Marcus's car in the driveway. He and Vanessa were sitting on my front porch steps, waiting. Want me to stay? Eleanor asked. No. I need to do this alone. Marcus stood as I approached, his expression a mixture of guilt and defensiveness. Vanessa remained seated, scrolling on her phone as if this were all perfectly routine. Mom, we need to talk about the logistics of your move, Marcus began. I'm not moving, I said calmly. I've hired an attorney. We're filing fraud charges against both of you. Vanessa's head snapped up. Fraud? You signed the papers willingly, after my son lied about what they were. That's called fraud, Vanessa. And apparently, it's a felony in Florida. Marcus's face went pale. Mom, you can't be serious. We can work this out as a family. You don't need to involve lawyers. You involved lawyers when you filed that deed transfer. You just didn't bother to tell me what you were doing. I pulled out my phone and showed them the email from Carmen Rodriguez. I've also filed for an emergency restraining order preventing you from selling this property. As of tomorrow, you won't be able to do anything with my house without my permission. It's not your house anymore. Vanessa stood, her voice rising. We have a legal deed. You can't just... I can fight it, and I will. My attorney says this is textbook financial elder abuse. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign that house back over to me, or I'm going to pursue criminal charges against both of you. Your choice. Marcus looked stricken. Mom, please. My business is barely surviving. We need this. I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't desperate. So your solution was to steal from your widowed mother? To make me homeless so you could pay your debts? You wouldn't have been homeless. We found you a nice retirement community that I never agreed to. Marcus, do you not understand what you've done? This isn't borrowing money that you'll pay back eventually. This is theft. This is destroying the only security I have. Vanessa stepped forward, her expression cold. You're being dramatic. You would have been fine in the retirement community. You're just angry that we made a decision without asking your permission first. Without asking my permission? Vanessa, it's my house. Was your house. And honestly, Patricia, maybe this is what you needed, a wake-up call that the world doesn't revolve around you and your feelings. The cruelty of it took my breath away. This was the woman my son had chosen, had committed fraud for, had betrayed his own mother to please. Get off my property, I said quietly. Both of you. And tell your attorney to expect paperwork from mine. The next 3 weeks were a blur of legal proceedings, sleepless nights, and the slow, painful process of watching my relationship with Marcus disintegrate. Carmen was aggressive, filing motions and gathering evidence while the emergency restraining order prevented Marcus and Vanessa from selling or further leveraging the property. What emerged during the investigation was worse than I'd imagined. Carmen's team discovered that Marcus's debt wasn't just from a struggling business. He and Vanessa had been living far beyond their means for years. The expensive cars, designer clothes, luxury vacations, the upscale condo in Miami, all of it financed with credit cards and loans from Vanessa's parents. They're drowning, Carmen told me during one of our meetings. They owe Vanessa's parents over $200,000. They have another $100,000 in credit card debt. Marcus's business is barely generating enough revenue to cover its operating costs. Your house was their escape plan. But how would my house solve their problems? Even if they sold it, the money would be gone in a few years at the rate they're spending. They weren't thinking that far ahead. They just needed immediate relief. And Patricia, I have to tell you, we found emails between Marcus and Vanessa planning this. They discussed the best way to get you to sign over the house. Vanessa explicitly wrote that you were too trusting and wouldn't read the documents carefully. Reading those emails, printed out and highlighted in Carmen's office, was like watching my son become a stranger. The Marcus I'd raised, the boy who'd cried when we found an injured bird in our backyard and insisted we nurse it back to health, had become someone who could write, "Mom will sign whatever I put in front of her. She always has." The betrayal was worse than the theft. The theft I could fight in court. The betrayal was something I'd carry forever. Marcus tried to reach out several times. Texts saying we needed to talk. Voicemails insisting he could explain. Vanessa, meanwhile, remained defiant, posting photos on social media of her and Marcus at expensive restaurants with captions about not letting anyone steal your joy. The nerve of it, calling me the thief while she sat in stolen luxury, was almost impressive. The breakthrough came when Carmen discovered that Marcus had forged my signature on additional documents, loan applications using my house as collateral without my knowledge. He'd tried to borrow against the property before even transferring the deed, presumably to get immediate cash. "This changes everything," Carmen said, her eyes bright with the thrill of the case turning in our favor. "This isn't just fraud. It's identity theft, forgery, and attempted grand theft. We have him." She arranged a meeting with Marcus and Vanessa's attorney, a slick young man who'd been stonewalling us with legal technicalities. In Carmen's conference room, with everyone seated around a massive table, Carmen laid out the evidence. "Your clients committed multiple felonies. They have 2 options. Sign the house back over to Mrs. Patterson with a notarized agreement never to contest her ownership again or face criminal prosecution. Mrs. Patterson is willing to forgo charges if the property is returned immediately." Marcus's attorney reviewed the documents, his expression growing increasingly grim. He requested a private conversation with his clients, and the 3 of them left the conference room for 20 minutes. When they returned, Marcus looked defeated. "We'll sign the house back," he said quietly, not meeting my eyes. Vanessa, however, was seething. "This is ridiculous. We had a legal deed. That you obtained through fraud," Carmen interrupted. "You're lucky Mrs. Patterson is being merciful. If this were my mother, I'd be pushing for maximum jail time." The paperwork was drawn up that afternoon. I watched Marcus sign his name on documents, reversing the deed transfer, watched Vanessa's furious signature slash across the page. The notary stamped everything official, and just like that, my house was mine again. But as we filed out of the law office into the Miami afternoon heat, Marcus finally looked at me. "Mom, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I really am sorry. We were desperate, and I made a terrible choice." "You didn't make a terrible choice, Marcus. You made dozens of choices. To lie to me, to trick me, to steal from me, to let Vanessa bang on my door at 5 in the morning. Each one of those was a separate decision to betray me. I know. I don't know how to fix this. I looked at my son, at the man he'd become, and felt a strange mixture of relief and grief. You can't fix it. You can only live with what you've done. And Marcus, I want you to know that every time you bought something you couldn't afford, every time you chose to keep up appearances instead of living within your means, you were making the choice that led here. You destroyed our relationship for money you don't even have anymore. Vanessa grabbed Marcus's arm. Come on, we don't have to listen to this. But Marcus pulled away from her, his eyes filling with tears. No, she's right. We destroyed everything for nothing. Mom, I don't know if you can ever forgive me. I don't know either, I said honestly. Right now, I just want you to leave me alone. The weeks following the legal resolution were strangely empty. I'd won. I had my house back, had retained my security, had successfully fought off Marcus and Vanessa's theft. But victory felt hollow, when what I'd really lost was my son. Eleanor came over regularly, bringing dinners and companionship. She'd been there through David's death and now through this betrayal, a constant friend when my family had proven unreliable. Have you heard from Marcus? She asked one evening as we sat on my back patio, the Florida sunset painting the sky orange and pink. He texts occasionally, apologizing, asking if we can talk. I haven't responded. What does Vanessa say? Nothing. I think she's furious that her plan failed. Marcus sent me a screenshot of an argument they had. She was blaming him for not standing up to me, saying he'd ruined their financial recovery. Eleanor shook her head. That marriage won't last. Too much pressure, too much debt, and now too much resentment. She was right. 2 months after the house was returned to me, Marcus called to tell me he and Vanessa were separating. She moved back in with her parents, he said, his voice hollow. She says I'm too weak, that I let you manipulate me into giving back the house. Patricia, her parents, they're demanding immediate repayment of all the money they loaned us. I'm going to have to declare bankruptcy. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt sad. I'm sorry, Marcus. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like you destroyed my marriage. The accusation stung. I destroyed your marriage? Marcus, you and Vanessa destroyed your marriage when you decided to commit fraud against your own mother. You destroyed it when you chose to live beyond your means and expected me to fund your lifestyle. Don't put this on me. You could have let us have the house. You don't need it. You're just one person. Stop. My voice was sharp. Stop trying to make me the villain here. You stole from me. The fact that you're facing consequences for that doesn't make me the bad guy. We didn't talk for another month after that conversation. Marcus went through with his bankruptcy, lost his business, and moved into a small apartment in a less expensive part of Miami. According to Eleanor, who heard through mutual friends, Vanessa had already filed for divorce. In November, almost a year after the early morning confrontation that changed everything, Marcus showed up at my door. Not at 5 a.m. this time, but at a reasonable afternoon hour. He looked tired, older somehow, worn down by the consequences of his choices. Can I come in? He asked. I let him in. We sat in the living room where he'd grown up, an ocean of silence between us. I've been in therapy, Marcus said finally, trying to figure out how I became someone who could do what I did to you. My therapist says I got caught up in keeping up appearances, that I tied my self-worth to my financial success and my ability to give Vanessa the lifestyle she wanted. That doesn't excuse what you did. No, it doesn't. Nothing excuses it. But Mom, I need you to know. I hate who I became. I hate that I hurt you. I hate that I destroyed our relationship for money that's now gone anyway. I've lost everything, my business, my marriage, my home, and most importantly, you. I looked at my son, seeing both the man who'd betrayed me and the boy I'd raised. You didn't just hurt me financially, Marcus. You shattered my trust. Every time I look at any document now, I second-guess myself. Every time someone asks me to sign something, I panic. You made me afraid in my own home. I know, and I'm so sorry. We talked for hours that afternoon. Marcus told me about the pressure he'd felt to match Vanessa's family's wealth, about the business failures he'd hidden from me, about the mounting debt that had made him desperate enough to betray me. None of it excused what he'd done, but it helped me understand the path that had led there. What happens now? Marcus asked as the afternoon faded into evening. I don't know. I don't trust you anymore. I'm not sure I can forgive you, at least not right now. But Marcus, you're still my son. That doesn't just go away, even when you've done something unforgivable. Can we try? To rebuild something? I thought about that. Maybe. Eventually. But it would have to be on my terms. No more lies, no more secrets, no more asking me for money or expecting me to solve your problems. You're a grown man. You need to handle your own life. I understand. Rebuilding trust with Marcus was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Harder than losing David. Harder than raising a child alone after divorce from Marcus's father decades ago. Harder than fighting the legal battle for my home. It required me to hold two contradictory truths simultaneously. Marcus was my son whom I loved, and Marcus had betrayed me in an unforgivable way. We started small. Monthly lunches at neutral restaurants, carefully structured conversations that avoided money or the past. Marcus was true to his word. He rebuilt his life slowly, taking a corporate job with a steady salary, living modestly, attending therapy regularly. About 6 months after our reconciliation began, Marcus brought me a cashier's check. "It's $10,000, he said. "The start of paying you back for all the money I borrowed over the years. I know it doesn't come close to covering what I put you through, but it's a start." I stared at the check, conflicted. "Marcus, I didn't loan you that money expecting repayment." "I know, but I need to pay you back anyway. It's part of making amends." I took the check, not because I needed the money, but because I understood it was part of Marcus's healing process. Over the next year, he made regular payments, slowly chipping away at the debt he felt he owed me. Vanessa, meanwhile, disappeared from our lives completely. The divorce was finalized, and Marcus told me she'd remarried quickly, an older businessman who could provide the lifestyle she wanted. "I hope she's happy," Marcus said without bitterness. "She wanted things I couldn't give her. Maybe she's found someone who can." The hardest conversation came almost 2 years after the house theft, when Marcus finally asked the question that had been hanging between us. "Mom, do you forgive me?" I'd thought about this question for months, had discussed it endlessly in my own therapy sessions. Yes, I'd started seeing a therapist too, working through the trauma of betrayal and the complicated grief of loving someone who'd hurt me so deeply. "I'm working on it," I told him honestly. "Some days I do. Some days I remember waking up to Vanessa pounding on my door, remember the feeling of reading those emails where you discussed manipulating me, and I'm right back in the anger. Forgiveness isn't a switch I can flip. It's a process." "That's fair," Marcus said quietly. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." And he was. Through doctor's appointments and holidays, through small emergencies and ordinary days, Marcus showed up in the consistent, reliable way he should have been doing all along. He never asked about my will or my finances. He never suggested I sell the house or downsize. He just showed up, week after week, rebuilding trust one lunch date at a time. 3 years after that terrible 5 a.m. morning, I found myself hosting Thanksgiving again, something I hadn't done since before the fraud. Marcus arrived early to help me cook, moving through my kitchen with the ease of someone who'd grown up there. "Remember when I was 8 and tried to make you breakfast in bed for Mother's Day?" he said, laughing at some memory. "I burned the toast so badly we had to open all the windows. You put salt instead of sugar in the orange juice," I added, smiling at the memory. "It was the worst breakfast I've ever had, and the best because you made it for me." Marcus stopped chopping vegetables, his expression serious. "I'm so sorry I forgot how to be that kid, the one who just wanted to make you happy." "You were that kid for a long time," I said. "Longer than most. You just lost your way for a while. Do you think I've found my way back?" I looked at my son, older now, marked by failure and loss and the consequences of his choices, but also more humble, more honest, more present than he'd been in years. "I think you're trying," I said, "and that's enough for now." As we sat down to Thanksgiving dinner that year, just the two of us in the house I'd fought to keep, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: gratitude. Not for what had happened. I'd never be grateful for the betrayal or the fear or the legal battle, but grateful that we'd survived it, that we'd found a way back to each other, that the relationship I'd thought was destroyed forever had instead been rebuilt into something more honest, if more fragile. Marcus raised his glass. "To second chances." "To second chances," I echoed, "and to knowing the difference between forgiving and forgetting." We clicked our glasses together, the sound ringing through my dining room, my home, my security, the thing I'd fought for and won. Outside, the Florida afternoon was warm and bright, so different from that dark early morning when Vanessa had pounded on my door and my world had shattered. I'd rebuilt that world, piece by piece. The house was still mine. Marcus was here, damaged but genuine. Trust was still fragile but growing. And I'd learned that sometimes the things we fight hardest to keep, our homes, our relationships, our dignity, are worth every battle scar we earn in their defense. The road back from betrayal is long and uncertain. But as I sat across from my son, watching him smile over the turkey we'd cooked together, I knew that sometimes the journey is worth it, not because you reach a perfect destination, but because you learn who you are and what you're capable of surviving along the way.